תנני ללכת, עוד תנני ללכת, לכרוע על חוף הסליחה. תנני ללכת, עוד תנני ללכת, לכרוע על חוף הסליחה, הסליחה.
Thank you.
לכל ריס וציפורן ולכל
So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. So lovely to see so many familiar faces and new faces as well. My name is Elyssa Moss Rabinowitz, and you are in the second of a series on online engagement through the M-Squares methodologies. And tonight, or today for you, we are focusing on sensory engagement. I'm going to ask you now to do two quick assignments. The first one is to please rename yourself on your screen to include your first name as well as the place where you serve as an educator. So we have a little bit of a sense where everyone is and what they do. I'm very delighted that we have a large group today, so I'm not sure that we're going to have a chance for everyone to introduce themselves personally, but at least we'll know who's in front of us. And the second request is to please go to the Google Doc that Haley just put into the chat. And you will find there a number of different images. And I'd like you to put your name under the image that you associate with your childhood home. And more than one person can choose the same one, so don't worry if someone else took your thing. You can all be on the same one. Hopefully everyone will be able to find something. If you don't find something, you're also welcome to add your own image if you have a little bit of, if you can quickly come up with something. So I'm just going to ask everyone to go into that Google Doc and put down your name somewhere next to one of the images.
It looks like someone might have deleted a row. So there might be
we'll have one less row.
Yes.
Or they can undo.
I saw it disappear in front of my eyes.
Okay, welcome to those of you who just joined. We are going into the Google Doc and putting our name next to an image that reminds us of our childhood home. And if you haven't already, please also rename yourself. If you're not sure how to do it, just click anywhere on the screen on your own face and do a right click and rename, and tell us what your first name is and where you serve as an educator. Great. So we're going to use this as our sort of introduction for our session today, where we're going to be focusing on sensory engagement in educational settings, and specifically, how do we translate that into an online learning setting. I want to preface by saying the following. First of all, I am by no means do I have all of the knowledge on this, and we have an amazing group of educators here. So I have left some time at the end for us to sort of crowdsource and brainstorm together, because I'm sure that you all have some ideas beyond what I've thought of. The second thing I want to say is that the way we're going to work together during this next hour is I would like to spend most of our time sort of modeling sensory engagement through a workshop that we're going to participate in. And then only at the end will we do our zoom out into how it relates to our work and what tools we have learned or can apply to our work as well. So for those of you who were in SEC, you may be familiar with this model. It's part of the methodologies cards, and the whole idea of sensory engagement, for those of you who are not familiar with the methodology cards, is, and I think we all know this intuitively, even if we've never learned it professionally, is that when we create educational experiences, the more we can incorporate the use of sensory engagement, the stronger and more impactful and more meaningful the experience will be. And more than that, not only can we use the senses, but they are can be controlled and dialed up and dialed down. So we can enhance certain senses and lower the use of other senses. So when we dim the lights, we're creating one environment. When we make someone close their eyes and listen to something, we're creating a different environment. So how we use our senses and how we control the use of senses for our students and for our learners is part of the design of our educational experience. So I just put up on the screen, and you can get this later, but I just want to sort of lay out there the basic idea is that the senses represent the connection and relationship between the inner person and the outer world through whole person involvement, creation of learning perceptions and anchors, and triggering emotional responses, which again, I think we all know from experience that when we use sensory engagement, it connects very directly with emotion, and we will hopefully be able to model some of that today. The use of senses in education involves both sensory enhancement and sensory reduction. That's what I was talking about, dialing up and dialing down. We can, and in each one of the 5 senses here, sound, sight, touch, smell, and taste, there are examples of how you can enhance and how you can reduce, and thereby affect the experience that your participants will be having. So we are now about to jump in, and we're going to start by a short Chavruta text study. Haley will divide you into pairs, but before that, we will put the link for the source sheet up. What we will be exploring is a story that I am sure many of you are familiar with, and this is when Isaac blesses Jacob, the story of the blessing that Jacob receives somewhat by trickery. He steals the blessing of his brother Esav. And I just want to preface and say, there's a lot to talk about in this story that has to do with the trickery and the lying and the deceit. We are purposely, for today's purpose, we are not going there. What I want you to look at this story in a new way, and that is to pay attention to the use of senses in the story. Please identify how all of the 5 senses appear in the story and what roles they play. And not only what roles do the senses play, but what is the interplay between the sensory experience and the interpersonal family relationships. Okay, so it's noticing the senses and paying attention to what purpose they use, they fulfill in the relationships between the different characters within the family setting. The bulk of the text, it looks really long because it just spread out and it's English and Hebrew, but the bulk of the text is the narrative of the story in Genesis. At the bottom, if you have time, I brought a few commentaries on some of the verses that specifically relate to the issue of senses. So enjoy. You're going to have 10 minutes to discuss with your chavruta, and then we will all come back. Questions before we go? Okay, Haley, did you put the link up? Yes.
Yep,
Okay. Okay, thank you. So we are ready to break off. Amazing. Should we be recording? Were we?
We're recording.
Great. Should we pause it during this time? 15 minutes for this, but I just said 10, so that's what it was. It's fine. I caught up with myself.
Works for me.
Hopefully they had enough time.
Yeah. Oh. 10 minutes is plenty to do a chavruta.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think so.
It's always better to feel like you didn't have enough time than that you were bored.
Right, exactly.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Are we all here?
No, only if you are
just
back.
Alexi and Joshua.
They're all going to pop right back in right now, though.
It's fun to see you.
Oh, here we are. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Okay, I know that was a little quick. We'll just wait a few more minutes, a few more seconds for everyone else to come back in. In the meantime, is there someone, a chavruta, who would like to share very briefly an insight they had that they had not discovered about the story before, that has to do with the sensory experience and family relationships? Yes, Robin. Oh, that was a, is that a?
No, that was, yeah, that was a raised hand, because I couldn't find the raised hand.
That's great.
So Aaron and I actually talked about the things that we knew people were relying on memory in terms of their sensory. So like the food that I savor, I know what it tastes like. He wasn't actually tasting it in that moment, but he was relying on it. And like Esau going and, you know, Jacob telling Esau, go and get these things. Esau knows what it feels like to have a bow and a quiver and weapons in his hand, but he doesn't have them in his hand at that moment. But yet we know his memory, you know, kicks in, saying, know what that feels like. So there are some of these like hidden, and like Rebecca, it doesn't say that Jacob and Rebecca are speaking face to face and seeing each other, but we assume she's not shouting across the house, because then Yaakov would have heard. So we assume they're seeing each other during that dialogue when she's saying, go get the goats.
Right.
So
and what you're pointing out is the connection between senses and memory, which is excellent. And there's actually research that shows that memory is very much connected with sensory experience, and that there are certain senses that are more directly connected to memory, such as smell. So many of you probably have had that experience that you suddenly like get a whiff of something and it brings you back to an experience like from years ago or from your childhood or something like that. It's a very, very strong connection. Anyone else have an insight to share? Just either unmute yourself and type in, or raise your hand if you know how to do the raise hand thing.
Brett and I were talking, it was really interesting how
Rebecca and Jacob kind of anticipated several parts of how to confuse their father's senses, or father and husband's senses. So put on this garment. Sorry if you hear the dog barking. Put on this garment to confuse about touch. And here's what we'll do about taste. Like, I'm going to make food taste different. But what they don't anticipate is the ability to have to deal with sound and voice, and that they don't anticipate that, and that's where they get kind of caught. And kind of that interesting piece about how do you affect sensory, and how do you, like, maybe you can't control for all of the sensory things.
Right. You can't always control. Yeah, definitely. Did anyone get to the, I know it was a short amount of time, but did anyone get to the pieces at the bottom and have any interesting additions from those commentaries? Okay. So you'll have the source, you can go back to it afterwards, but it's actually really interesting. Like, Eliza, is that a hand raise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed at the end of the text, the kiss that Isaac is asking from Esav, I think. And I was thinking that with this wish for a kiss, it's like a wish for a sensory touch, because the kiss include the smell, the kinetic, the touch, like all the sensory engagement.
Yeah, and like feeling the arms was not enough. He actually calls him to come in closer for that kiss, because he needs to use more of his senses that perhaps will help him uncover or figure out who it actually is. Thank you. So I think that this story builds for us very clearly the connection between senses and memory and experiences, and also how those play out in our relationships at home and in a family setting. And so I thought that just for today's little mini experience, we'll focus on exploring senses in homes and in family relationships. And this can be your current home or the home you grew up in. So I'm saying that out right now, that each one of you can choose to address this next assignment as either something from your current home or from the home that you grew up in. And what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a little scavenger hunt assignment. You're going to have about 10 to 12 minutes to do it. There are 7 different options. I'm asking you to do at least one, depending on your rate and your what you have available and whatever. You can do more than one, but try each of you to accomplish at least one of them. And here they are. So go off screen. Do not log out. Just walk away from your computer. You can turn off your video if you want. And bring us back one of the following: a song, tune, or melody that reminds you of your parents or your childhood or your relationship with your own children. You can sing it yourself. You can use instruments. You can bring a recording of it, a video of it. If the person is not at your home, but you could actually reach out to them and have them sing it for you and send it as a voice message, that's also an option. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is to bring a food or recipe that you associate with a parent or grandparent. Think of a way to bring it and share it with us. I know you're not going to be making dishes right now, but bring a copy of the recipe, bring a significant ingredient, a picture of it, something that reminds you of this special food. The third option is to bring an object that has been passed down to you or given to you by someone you love, which represents for you a certain element of that relationship. Preferably, you will bring the actual physical object that you have in your home. If not, a picture of it will do. The fourth option is a smell that brings you to your childhood. I purposely brought a few examples here to give it a little life. So the smell of a box of crayons, or the smell of a new book, or of fresh dirt, or of a barbecue, or the first rain. If this smell is something you have around and you can actually bring it and smell it, great. If not, figure out a way that you can figuratively or symbolically, visually represent it. The two last options are a site of a specific tradition or moment in time that you have an image of in your head. For example, a set table on a Shabbat dinner or a Seder night, the image of your parent falling asleep reading to you, walking into the house after a long time, what do you see? Recreate this image using photographs or by drawing it, and describe the image in the most visual way possible to bring us into this site. And the final option is to remember a certain physical touch that conjures family and warmth, the hug of a parent or grandparent, the supportive arm on your shoulder guiding you, a hand you held that took you places, and think again of a visual way to convey it in a photograph, a drawing, or an icon. So the goal is for you to choose at least one of these. If you have time and want to do more, great. And we will be sharing these afterwards. We're not all going to present them, but we are going to share them. So keep in mind that this is something you should be willing to share. You don't have to explain it, but you should be willing to show it. And the only last thing I want to say about this is that you know, don't spend all your time like debating about what to do. Just like pick one of them, go with your intuition and do it. This is the place where if you want to use any art supplies or paper and pen that you have, feel free. If that does not feel comfortable to you and you want to find something on the internet or record something, also feel free. Use whatever modality works for you. Questions? Okay, I'm going to leave the assignment up on the screen. You have 10 minutes. At a quarter of, we will meet back. We'll meet back here. So just turn off your, make sure you're muted, and see you soon. Any questions? I'm here. If you want to chat or type in, go for it.
So if you go into the slideshow, for some reason we all just lost access to it. So can you go into the sharing options and just change it back to anyone who has the link can edit?
Yeah, that's really weird. I will do that.
Okay, it looks like everyone should be able to.
Just did it. I updated now. Everyone in?
It's view only though. So if people,
I did edit. I did edit. 1 second.
See?
Anyone can edit. Try refreshing and doing it again.
It's good now.
Okay, great. Okay, so we are going to begin our gallery walk. We're going to, Haley's going to share the slideshow on her screen. I'm going to ask people to really, really briefly, like in less than 20 seconds, share what they are showing us on their image. If someone has something that they want to show physically, then when you speak, you'll be on speaker view and we'll be able to see it. So, Haley, let's go. Aaron, you're on. Aaron, are you there?
All right, I'm good. There's two images. I was about to put a third one on. The first one is a wedding band that was my grandfather's, and he actually passed away 2 months prior to my wedding. And so every day I'm reminded of the person he was and the love that him and my grandmother shared. And the other image is this hideous, oversized love seat that currently resides in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house. And 15 years ago, they were trying to get rid of it. And when I was a kid, I guess it was more than 15 years ago, I threw a temper tantrum and told them they couldn't get rid of it because I had so many special memories on it. And so now it lives in my childhood bedroom.
Thank you. Great. Haley, let's go on. Alexi isn't.
So
yes.
You can hear me. Okay. So coincidentally, I actually have in my fridge, forget about the jar that it's a pickle jar, but my family is from Romania in Eastern Europe, and my mother, I'm a first generation born American, and so I grew up with a lot of Eastern European food in my home. And this sour cream based green bean soup just made its way into my fridge actually yesterday from my mother. And you're supposed to eat it like lukewarm, not like a boiling hot soup. And so it happens to be in my fridge, and it smells delicious, it tastes delicious, and I wish you could all taste it.
Thank you. I wish so too. Thank you. Elyssa.
So I put one more image, but this is my grandmother. She died, I think maybe a month ago in the time of the corona, and I couldn't fly to Israel. But she raised me when my mother wasn't able to do so. But I put this image where she's sitting on a couch, where we every Friday evening, that's Friday evening in Israel, we used to watch Arabic movie together. So in Israel, every Friday at 4, when I grew up, there used to be an Arabic movie. My grandmother, she's from Egypt, and me and her, we made burekas, like food named burekas, and then we watched the movie. And I remember these couches, giant, comfortable couch, but eventually when I saw this picture, it is just a simple couch. Yeah, another thing I put is a recipe for cheesecake that she always made, and just a week ago I had to make it again, and when I made it, it just instantly, it was the taste and the smell and everything.
Thank you, Elyssa. I'm going to ask people to be a little bit briefer because we want to make sure to have a chance to. No, it's great. I know it's hard. Brett.
Hi, everybody. So I chose a song that I used to sing in the car with my dad a lot when we used to be out on excursions, getting out of the house together. He was a big fan of like classic rock, and we listened to a lot of Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen, The Doors, and our song was "Do a Diddy" by Manfred Mann. So that's what I put in there. Would we like to listen to it, or I don't want to eat up too much time at the mic?
We'll go back to it later for people that want to listen. Yeah, because I want to make sure we get a chance for everyone. one.
Okay, this is a needlepoint that my mother made for my grandmother. It hung in her house for many years, and then eventually it's what I asked for when my grandmother passed away. So also, I remember my mother making it. I remember hanging it there, and it has that cross generational memory for me.
So that's my 4-year-old singing Sunrise Sunset. When he was young, he's 4, so he's already young, but younger, we got the PJ Library book, and he really sort of attached himself. And over the years, we've actually changed the words, but it's a very soothing song for our family.
Okay, so I'll just say one of the two that I picked. This happens to be in my fridge. It's smoked mackerel, which reminds me of my mother, and which I happened to see on Friday in the deli, and I bought it because of my mother. I'm not actually sure I like it, but it reminds me of my mother and reminds me of my mother's house, and it has a really strong smell as well. So I'm covering 2 here. I'm surprised that you can't smell the mackerel because it crosses boundaries. And it just reminds me of certain kinds of foods that my mother used to serve.
Okay, so this is a picture of a recent picture, but of my a singing group from my childhood. I don't know if there are any other Canadians out there, but Sharon, Lois, and Bram, or anyone who knows Sharon, Lois, and Bram. This was a couple of years ago when they dedicated a park near me, but this was, there's specifically a song, like a birthday song that they used to sing that like my family would sing that at birthdays. And so this specifically reminds me of my family and my childhood.
So I went with the sense of smell, and so my husband used to have a food truck called the Chosen Cholent, which then when we moved from New Jersey to Miami, it became Adam's Ribbon Stuff. And so the smell of barbecue and cholent is like, I feel like my daughter is gonna grow up thinking that's like what our house always smells like, which is really nice. And I also happen to have my grandma's perfume that somehow my husband's grandfather gave it to me as a gift, so I can't wear it because it's weird, but it's nice to just have.
So full disclosure, Elyssa got kicked out. I think her internet must have gone out on us, so we're just gonna continue. And thank you for everyone for just rolling with us.
The smell of the dusty plastic metal comes from this like bag of cables. This is like my bag of cables, but like my dad always had like a bag of cables that was like impossible to find the actual cable you ever wanted to, and then you would and it wouldn't work. But like that smell is very like unmistakable, and I'm really pleased that the smell has like made its way to my own bag of cables. And it's just the same smell, even though the cables are like 30 years like more modern, same dusty cables.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I got bopped out. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm back in on a different device. Where are we? Joshua.
All right, so I just put the link to the song by the Beach Boys, which my dad always used to listen to, and the warmth of the sound, like whenever I hear it, it just reminds me of being in my parents' home.
Thank you. Lori?
So I'm showing you actually what my object is here. My object is a candelabra, which was given to my husband's grandmother in the early 1930s when she left Poland to come get married in Israel, and was dug out of the back of a closet by my father-in-law and given to me 28 years ago when I married my husband. And it has each of my children, or some of my children, are represented on the candelabra, and memories of my father-in-law who died very young but comes to life every Friday when I light my candelabra. And my youngest child is named for that great-grandfather who gave the candelabra to my husband's grandmother. So it really comes full circle in our family.
Thank you. Robin. Oh, yeah, Melissa, sorry.
So I'll just share two of these things. So the one thing that I did post in there was a song called Danny's Song. And although it was written by Loggins and Messina, I think I first heard it sung by Anne Murray, who my mom loved. And so that was the first song that popped into my mind. I remember listening to music with my mom all the time, playing piano together and all sorts of things. So music was very important to both of us. And then I don't know that you can see this, but this is a handwritten recipe from my mom's handwritten recipe for zucchini bread, which is like my favorite thing that she would make. And I make it now. And so, you know, the taste and the smell of that for sure makes me always think of her and of home or my childhood.
So the song is from a group called Safam, which my childhood cantor was a part of. And the song, Just Another Foreigner, talks about Jews in Israel and in the former Soviet Union. And I came from a very global Jewish family living in different parts of the world. And so both the sound of it, but also like I can almost imagine sitting when I heard the group for the first time in the suburbs of Boston as a child. And then for taste, I put my mom's Passover farfel kugel. This is what Passover tastes like for me. But I did, as I pasted it in here, delete the line that says raisins optional, because you should not put raisins in it. And I will put the recipe in the chat if anyone is looking for a delicious Passover recipe.
Thank you.
Hi, this is a bedroom set. I don't know what happened to the third picture. My great-grandfather was a carpenter, and around the turn of the century, he carved a bedroom set for my grandmother, for my great-grandmother, for an engagement present. And this is the bed, and it was passed on from my great-grandparents to my grandparents to my parents. And then it was my bed when I grew out of the crib. But the close-up picture is like, I can just always feel the texture. Like, I don't need to be touching, like, you know, I would like slide down the pole as a kid, like a fireman pole, and just like that texture, even if I'm not touching it, I can feel the texture. Like, I know exactly what it feels like.
Thank you, Robin. Wow. Robin, the other Robin had to jump out. So let's move to Sarah Kay.
Hi. Okay, so I did 3 things. I'll start with the crescent rolls. They're not even hextured, but I realized at a certain point in this pandemic that I'm not going to be like one of these pandemic bakers because I just don't have the time to like make challah. So my kids and I have invented this thing like the second week of Corona that we call shortcut challah, which is basically we cut up all these crescent rolls and we like braid them into this enormous, very delicious, very non-traditional challah. And so it's become like the smell and the taste of like quarantine Shabbat, this enormous buttery braided thing. So that's why I picked that. And then I'll just do one other thing, which is that's a pocket watch, which was my grandmother, who, thank God, Baruch Hashem, is alive at 92. She's the most incredible social justice warrior. That was her grandfather's pocket watch, and she gave it to me. I'm like a crazy jewelry person, and she gave it to me to make into a necklace, and it's like extraordinary. So those are my things. Bye.
Thank you. Shayna.
So I found the lullaby Tumbalalaika on YouTube. My mom didn't sing it to me as Neil Sedaka, but she used to sing it to me at night as a lullaby. And at one point during my childhood, she wrote an English version that was like a kid-friendly. She was going to turn it into like an illustrated children's book where when you opened it, it would like sing the song. So when I hear the song, when I hear the Yiddish, I like hear her like beautiful rhyme that she wrote that's like very child friendly and beautiful. So it's like my favorite. As soon as I hear it, it's in her voice, no matter who's singing it.
Thank you. Stacy? Stacy still here?
I am. So I'm trying to, okay, so let's see. All right, I have it. So bouquet of Christopher Robin, and I don't know if you can see this, but anyways, the Christopher Robin song I sang to my kids when they were trying to fall asleep, and I just love that song, and it reminds me of camp and home and my kids. And there's this really cool peacock that was given to me by my grandmother, and it has this cool like little tail kind of thing that I used to play with, and then when she passed away, my dad gave it to me. And then hand done recipes from her as well, and whenever we make hamantaschen, it's just awesome and it smells like her house. And there was so many. Thank you.
So I want to apologize for everyone because I had a little bit of technical issues in the middle. We're running a tiny bit over, so I know some people have to leave and have left. If you are able to stay with us a few more minutes, you are welcome to. I will be here for another 15 minutes. And I just want to close with what I was hoping we would have time to do more in detail and in depth. Is sort of now trying to zoom out from this experience on ways that you think you've learned from this, that you could incorporate more sensory engagement and sensory experiences online with your students and your participants. So if you're still with us, and you can take your pen and paper and just complete the following sentence. One way I can incorporate more sensory experiences into my online teaching is, I'll repeat it, one way I can incorporate more sensory experiences into my online teaching is, and if you are willing to share that via the chat, I think it will be helpful and useful to the rest of us. We were going to do it annotated on the whiteboard, but at this point, I think given everything, we'll send it by chat, and we'll capture it afterwards and send it to everyone if you want to gain from your peers' input as well. So I already see some of them starting to come in. Thank you. And I will remind everyone that this is the second in a series. You're welcome to come for the third one as well. And thank you very much for your time and for being here. I'm still hanging out. Have a great day. Feel free to ask questions. I've seen so far include more content that is off screen and ask people to see what's at home, using playlists and sound as people are joining. Limiting one sense heightens the other. Use the gallery methodology and try and make it even more immersive. Meaningful moments plus a scavenger hunt equals meaningful fun. And Robin says, I've done a lot of scavenger hunts that are sign related, but we'll also think about having them bring things that arouse other senses. Thank you all. Sight. I will say that one of the challenges is, as we're online and on Zoom, we use sight a lot. We use sound a lot. And it's a little harder to focus on touch. One of the things, for those of you who know, my background is
with hands-on art workshops. And one of the things we've been playing around a lot with is how you can create hands-on tactile experiences even while people are learning online. And one of the ways that we do this is by having people sort of turn off their screens and actually engage with something with their hands. There's also a lot to do with kinetic and physical movement even while you're online. The more challenging ones are smell and taste, which I'm sure all of you are aware of the ability to do cooking workshops, etc. But how do we incorporate those pieces and those senses even when we're teaching other content? It's a challenge, and I think some people have some interesting ideas and ways to try it out. Any questions?
I have a comment, just something I thought about, which is like with like the smell and the taste. It's just like jotting this down, thinking about this kind of like immersive gallery kind of vibe. And then I was thinking, what does everyone have in their house, and trying to make it like inclusive, because loads of people don't have like all the spices in the world. But what you could do is an activity where everyone goes and gets like salt or pepper, because I'd say like 95% of people probably have salt or pepper. Then everyone has to like put like a salt and they'll smell it at the same time. And you know, in the eyes closed, and you could have music on, and or you could get people to like taste like a spoonful of pepper to like make a point about like harshness. I don't know, but like thinking of trying to like boil down what are the most common things people have that taste and smell like something distinct, so that everyone can kind of do it together. And obviously there is an issue if people don't happen to have those, then it starts being non-inclusive. So there's always that risk. There's a question I asked last week in the session as well about inclusivity is like really complicated. But yeah, just a thought.
Yeah, thank you, Joey. I think also, there's something like while trying to be inclusive of everyone, there's something about Zoom. It depends obviously on the setting. If you're in a like formal classroom, you can be more demanding of your students, and if it's like a less formal thing, sometimes people are connecting, you know, while they're driving or while they're walking, and how do we as educators try to create and design and control an environment and have requirements and expectations while taking into account that people are going to be in different settings? And I think at a certain point, maybe we have to limit that and say, like, here's what is required to be part of this experience. You have to be, you know, have a pen and paper or have salt in your cup or whatever.
Yeah, the advice that was given to me last week when I asked the question about how to make those things inclusive was basically entirely about setting up expectations in advance. So sending an email round. So please make sure you have salt at your house. Please make sure you're sitting in a room with a laptop rather than a phone or etc.
Exactly.
That's anything I can think of as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, thoughts?
I just want to add on to what Joey said, and like having, instead of bringing salt, bring something that is salty or something that is sweet or savory, like opens it up a little bit more and still may get to what you're trying to go for. I've also found people and our parents have been extremely creative in like our kids needed ink pads for something the other day, and it didn't occur to me that they could use a magic marker too. And one parent colored a cotton ball for the kid, like colored and colored and colored it. And I was like, well, I guess it worked. But there's a lot of creativity also from this that I think is really neat.
And it's also a question of like how much you can depend on there to be helpers around, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Actually, I do have another question for you, Elyssa. Sorry. Yeah. I know that you do all that hands-on stuff, but all that hands-on stuff. Have you tried sending stuff to people's houses yet? And if so, how has that gone?
So we haven't. We're about to do it in 2 weeks. We haven't done it because most of the things that we've been doing up till now are with people that are like all over the world and a little harder to anticipate. But as we're entering a cohort experience where we know who our participants are and they're in for the long run, and we can, you know, plan things that they're not one-off seminars, etc., or webinars. We are planning on doing that and like sending the materials that you need to have in order to be able to do the project. What we have learned so far is, like I said before, that we can't necessarily rely on people to have everything. So in situations where we've wanted to do hands-on, we've defined the project as such that it can, like, you can use multiple materials, and we've said come with whatever art supplies, let's say, you have, or you know, make sure to include scissors, you know, pencils and paper, but if you have anything else, make, you know, on hand, and then people just use whatever they have, and you have to define the project a little less strictly. Sarah Kay, you want to add some stuff about that? You said you're deep in it.
Yeah, we're just, we got money to do like a whole subscription box series, like week by week. So we're like heavily into planning this right now. And a lot of the feedback we've received is that people want literally every single thing in the box. The parents do not want to look for anything. The adults don't want to look for anything. So we're like really, you know, thinking about how to sort of storyboard an experience, how to put stuff together, how is the box itself, like, you know, an immersive experience, like receiving the box is immersive, then getting them to think about the processing about what's in the box. What do they reach for first? How is that? What's the learning behind that? Why did they go there first? Like, what does that say? Was it because it's easier? Because it was more appealing? There's like a whole rubric.
And they and
Exactly. So we're like very deep in this.
Go beyond, especially like, you know, when you're working with a local group of students and you have enough planning time, then it can definitely go way beyond like the materials, like the art supplies. Let's say you can have templates, you can have, you know, constructing things, you can design things that they will be on the box itself, but even in the inside of the box, that they're getting the physical objects. Yeah. I think that people are really thirsty for that now and need it because everything has become so screen-based.
That's
and to be able to do something very hands-on and tactile is like a fresh of breath.
It also gets around a lot of the like halachic issues, which is one of the reasons why we're leaning on it, because it allows us to provide an experience that's off Zoom, but that a whole family could have over Shabbat. So like there's that. And then also like how is the first box in the series different? Like, does it have all the supplies that they'll need for the smaller boxes? Does it include like a sign that we want them to hang up, or like a placemat, you know, for their laptops? Like, so we have a lot of that we're thinking about with this. We're also, I mean, to be so M squared nerdy, we're doing ours as values dyads. So like each box is two values that are in tension. So it's gonna be like really wackadoo. But anyway, I love this topic.
Keep us posted. Share it. Anyone else? Questions, insight, thoughts?
And if anyone wants to, by the way, if anyone wants to work offline on this, like I'm really into that too. So if anyone, like I was on another M squared webinar, I ended up in like a 2-hour conversation with someone who wanted to brainstorm. So if anyone ever wants to do stuff like that, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, maybe me actually. Let's exchange emails after.
Okay, I'll put my email in the chat.
Perfect. Elyssa, thanks so much. It's great to see you again in session.
Nope, I just sent it to Robin, and now, there's Robin, and now I'm going to send it to Joey. Okay.
Thank you all so much for being here, and I apologize for the technical issues in the middle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Haley.
Thank
I
you.
want to give a huge shout out to Haley for
Really.
like,
MVP.
thank you, Haley. Amazing. Do it without you.